My reflection stares at me when I'm not looking. This may sound paranoid and strange, but I have a problem. I can't go near a mirror or any reflective surface without a terrifying encounter with my own reflection. It all started about a week ago. I had just returned home from work and was ready to settle down with a drink in one hand and my TV remote in another. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I don't go out much, and this is the perfect way I like to spend my evenings. My job, while not difficult in the least, is very taxing physically. I don't have anyone I would consider a friend, and my family all live out of state, so I get a lot of TV time in. After a couple of hours of binge watching, I had ignored my bladder long enough and had to make a quick restroom run. Since the last episode ended in a great cliffhanger, I was in a hurry to get back. I will admit, I was a bit tipsy at this point, but I know what I saw next was not due to any intoxication I was feeling. As I was washing my hands in the sink, I looked up at the mirror and, for the quickest of moments, my reflection was grinning at me. It was very brief, and it turned back into my look of confusion I was giving the reflection. It was almost as if I busted someone, but that someone was my own image reflecting back at me. I shrugged this off as my imagination and continued my Netflix binge fest. It was becoming very late, and I decided to head to bed after this episode. I pounded down the last of my drink and hit the off button on the remote. What I saw in the blurry reflection of my now powered down television sends chills up my spine just even explaining it here. I saw myself looking out from the TV and grinning, ear to ear. My reflection was filling the entirety of the screen, yet I was across the room. The smile that was directed at me was not benevolent. The sight of this hit me as I yelled out instinctively. "What the hell?" I yelped as I ran into the kitchen. I stood in the kitchen with my hands on my hips for several minutes, attempting to work up the courage to walk back into my living room and assess what I had just seen. After a good deal of pacing, I slowly walked back into the side of my television and my reflection looking normal. I peered into the TV almost as if I was looking into a window, looking for some kind of clue. Nothing. My scared and perplexed reflection was all that looked back at me. I went to bed that night with a strange feeling, but I managed to get some sleep. I woke up the next morning in a bit of a haze from last night's round of drinks. I had the entire weekend off from work, but as I began to remember the strangeness from the night before, I decided I'd take a break from further inebriation this weekend. What is wrong with you? I said to myself as I made my way to the kitchen to make some coffee. Even though I was alone, I felt a bit embarrassed about my previous night's antics. I continued my day with breakfast and more streaming. Several hours had passed and I had put last night's events out of my mind. This didn't last long, however. I had to make a trip to the store for a few essentials. A flash of anxiety fell over me as my thumb moved to the off button on my remote. With one eyebrow raised, I watched my TV flicker off. Nothing. My reflection was me, and there was no grinning or strange looks from my reflection. I sighed in relief as I stood up to make my way to the door. My relief ended quickly, though. As I moved to grab the doorknob on my front door, the reflection from it showed me something terrifying. My reflection in the doorknob was running towards me, as if to attack. My reflexes kicked in with the sudden sight, and I turned around quickly, falling to the floor. I slammed the back of my head against the door. Whoa, 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 whoa! I screamed uncontrollably. I took a quick glimpse around to an empty living room. I began to realize what happened last night may have been real after all. I got to my feet and quickly opened my front door with my eyes closed, as to not see my reflection. I made my way to my car, still shaken from what had just occurred. As I fumbled with my keys to unlock my car, a strange feeling wafted through me. I slowly looked up to my car window. The same evil grin of my reflection peered back at me. This time, it wasn't hiding it. It was almost as if the reflection was happy I had found it, and it knew how to frighten me. With eyes bulging, I slowly backed away. The grin from whomever or whatever this was did not stop. It continued to stare at me in delight. Who are you? What do you want from me? I asked as I struggled to get out the words. No response. No movement. It just continued to stare and grin. I panicked and quickly opened my car with this thing staring at me. I plopped in my front seat and closed my eyes. This isn't real, I yelled to myself. Whatever this is, it's just in my head. Don't think about it. Don't acknowledge it. I continued pleading with myself. I opened my eyes to see my reflection once again in my rearview mirror. It was shaking his head as if to say, "You're wrong. I'm here, and I have you." One panic swipe from my hand sent the mirror to the car floor. I began crying in fright. What was this? Am I losing my mind? Am I going insane? This felt like much more than a hallucination. I sat in my car for 20 more minutes, then decided to make my way to the store. I still needed to attempt to live my life. Whilst shopping, I deliberately avoided looking at any reflective surface. As a child, I was a bit socially inept, and having a breakdown in public would absolutely revive some of those memories of being teased and picked on. "How's your day going so far, sir?" the cashier asked me politely as he ran through my items. I looked up at him to answer. I shot back in a knee-jerk reaction, knocking over product behind me. In the reflection of the clerk's glasses, I saw it. It let out a silent laugh as it was seemingly amused by my reaction. I tried to ignore it. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling too well today," I said, attempting to cover up my actions. "Is there anything we can get you from the pharmacy?" he asked, attempting to help. No, this is something that can't be helped," I timidly said with my eyes trained forward, attempting not to look in the clerk's eyes. Looking back, I regret this comment because the look he gave me was a reminder of the strange child I used to be. I made my way back home with my newly purchased goods. Again, I avoided anything that could house that evil thing that was seemingly amused at what it was doing to me. I sat on my sofa as soon as my groceries were put away and stared into the blank television set. It was normal. My own reflection was looking back at me. No evil grin, no attempts to scare me. "What do you want?" I sternly said to my powered-down television. I was slowly coming out of my fright and entered a more frustrated mood. "Is this amusing you, huh? To frighten me? Show yourself," I commanded my reflection. Nothing. I was watching myself in the reflection of my TV scold whatever this thing was. I threw my remote on the floor in frustration and stood up. I paced for several minutes in anger. I was fed up. This thing knew how to manipulate me and it was getting a kick out of it. Why me? I asked myself under my breath. Why does it want me? I walked into my bathroom to confront this being in the first place I saw it. There I was, staring at my own reflection in a combination of anger and fright. "I won't let you scare me anymore," I instructed my reflection. "Nothing again. You have no power over me. You can't hurt me. All you can do is startle me, that's it," I demanded to the mirror. Nothing still. I stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection still had my movements. It was reacting in sync with everything I did. Perhaps this thing had gone away. It had its fun and I was now useless to it. It got the fright out of me that it needed. I wish this were true. As my stare continued, my reflection changed slowly. When I say changed, I mean its form began to dissipate. It was turning into an almost silky-looking black mass. It was hovering in the mirror. No form besides the black, twisted mass that was in front of me. I stared in disbelief. From the middle of the dark mass, something started to form. As it grew, I recognized it quickly. It was the grinning teeth I'd seen in my terrifying reflections before, except this wasn't my grin. Its smile was wider than any human could attempt, and more menacing. Slowly, 2 eyes began to appear above the toothy grin. The eyes, those eyes, were pure evil. I fell to the floor in terror. "Go away, I hate you, go away, get out of here," I screamed in a terrified, high-pitched voice. It began to laugh at me. I could not hear it, but it was laughing hysterically. At me. I've dealt with being laughed at my whole life, but nothing could have prepared me for this. I closed my eyes tight as it continued its laughter. I put my hands over my eyes in terror and began sobbing once again. Several minutes had passed and I looked up timidly. It was gone. All I could see was the bare wall of the bathroom in the reflection. I slowly stood up, revealing myself in the mirror. In a defeated walk, I left the bathroom and made my way to my bedroom. I lay down and stayed in bed for the rest of the day. Since this day, I continued to see this thing in my reflections. Out of the corner of my eye, it will run at me, startle me. It tries to claw at me and laughs when I jump back. I can feel it staring at me with that grin, that evil grin. As I'm writing this, it's staring at me. It's waiting for its next opportunity to frighten me, to torture me. It stares from the reflections in my phone, my computer screen, door handles, water. Anywhere I have a reflection, it lives. It sometimes doesn't want to startle me, it just stares and stares as if it's obsessed with me and feeds off of my fear of it. If this happens to you, know that you're not alone. My reflection stares at me too. It's always there and it wants you to know it. Try watching your reflection from the corner of your eye. Does it do anything beyond your own actions? If it does, you have my pity, as I now have yours. If you folks enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to the channel. I appreciate it. Special thanks to Deify on Reddit for writing this story.